In my critique of Hogwarts Legacy, I talked about how I wish it was more of a school sim. Let's take these off. I can hear myself better. I think they look cool, but I can't hear myself, and it's like I'm going to start shouting like I'm playing COD or something. But anyways, in my critique of Hogwarts Legacy, I said I wish it was more of a school sim. I wish it followed the persona model more. I want to talk about that a little bit more. I just want to emphasize this bit because, man, this would be a great game. So if you haven't played Persona, I've only played Persona 4 and Persona 5. I actually have Persona 3 now on my Steam account sitting in my backlog. I want to play it, but we'll see when I have time. The Persona games work something like this. You are a normal kid in high school, and you're in this town, and you're a newcomer, and you're going to school, and you're doing your sort of daily humdrum shit, right? You go to the store, you buy stuff, you find books to read, you go to class, you answer the questions that your teachers pose to you, you decide on how you're going to spend your time. You're going to go to, your sports practice, or you're going to go hang out with your friends. Which friends are you going to hang out with? You meet friends as you go, both girls and boys, and so on and so forth. Then you enter a mysterious realm of fantasy and danger. So in Persona 4, you go into this TV world, basically. I actually really prefer 4's bizarre world to 5's. I love 5. It's a great game. But 4, there's this, every time it rains, there's this mysterious TV channel that turns on, basically, and you go into what ends up being essentially the mental illness of somebody. These people keep disappearing, and they're captured and taken to this weird realm, and you discover that it's kind of their own psyches that is causing this, right? That you have to rescue them from themselves in a way. And once you're in this realm, you're basically dungeon delving. You're going into this dungeon, and when you encounter bad guys, it turns into a turn-based combat system. So you and your party, once you get a party, all have their special powers. You, as the protagonist, have a whole wide array of different personas that you collect. And each of these personas is a different spell, essentially. And then your companions have their own. They don't have as many personas as you. They have their own specific persona and its powers. And some of these will be healing, some of these will be offense, and then each of the monsters you encounter is going to have a different weakness and strength, and so you have to figure out which personas work against which monsters, and it's this whole strategy, tactical experience. Trying to stay alive, trying to get through the dungeon, seeing how far you can get before you're going to get screwed, and getting to the final boss, which is always way harder. In the 5th game, it's very similar, except for that you're trying to steal the heart of these bad people, right? So like an abusive teacher or an abusive painter with their underlings that's been stealing their work, and so on and so forth. I don't want to spoil too much. But you have to go into the same kind of dungeon, fight the same kind of monsters with personas and everything else. And ultimately, always in these games, it's not just like a villain that you're taking down, it's some part of their humanity that you're struggling against, whether they're abusive, whether they're suicidal, whatever. But what makes these games so great is that you have this combination of the day-to-day, going to school, studying, hanging out with friends, all of that stuff. Which honestly, especially in the 4th game, it took me a while to realize how actually awesome that was, because there's a pretty long stretch of like, what am I doing here? It takes a while. Like the 5th game, like immediately in the very first moments, you're like, it's exciting, and you have like what happens at the end and then a flashback to the beginning. So right away you're drawn in, whereas the 4th game is very different and a lot slower. But by the way, I played the Persona 4 Golden. I started to play that on the PS Vita. I now have it on Steam, but I played on the PS Vita long ago, and it was absolutely my favorite Vita game for sure. But it really, there's this double immersion. I'd love to create a tabletop role-playing game that utilizes these mechanics. It would be hard to do. But I love the idea of like you're just doing your normal day-to-day stuff, and then you go into these dungeons of the soul, dungeons of the mind. And I love the turn-based combat in these games. These are tactically involved games, and it makes combat really interesting. And now I'm trying to take this and you port this onto a Hogwarts Legacy game. It would be a totally different game. So this is not a critique of Hogwarts Legacy. I'm not saying that they did the wrong thing by not doing what Persona did, but I love the idea of it because now you're at school, now you're at Hogwarts, and you have to manage your time. You go to classes. These classes don't necessarily teach you new spells every time, but all the little things you do slowly raise all your stats. Like in Persona, reading or going to class or just bonding with other people, each of these things has a slow, gradual effect on leveling you up. You don't just level up like in a normal RPG with experience, but every little aspect of who you are can be leveled up, and all your personas can be leveled up. So there's just tons of different ways. Now, I love the idea of like Hogwarts Legacy. You're managing your time. You have to go to bed. You have to go to different classes. And each day passes, your different things come up, and eventually you then go on. You go on to a mission into the Forbidden Forest, or you go into these different dungeon scenarios where combat isn't action based. Look at that. I don't mind the combat in Hogwarts Legacy, but it's pretty Like, it's okay. It's not great. It's not terrible. It's just It's fine. If I want action combat, I'm going to go play, Sekiro or Bloodborne or something. I like turn-based combat a lot. I love XCOM. I love these turn-based games. And I think that it would lend itself to a spell book very, very nicely. If you and your companions in this version of Hogwarts Legacy went off into the Forbidden Forest and you were going through and looting chests and all that, and you'd encountered some bad guys, some monsters or some dark wizards or something, and then it turned into a turn-based game where you had to pick from your spells and cast your spells against these monsters, and some spells were weak against them and some spells were strong, and each of your companions had their own specialties and everything else. Basically Persona, but with spells rather than personas. I just think that would be really fun. I think the combination of turn-based combat plus the rhythm that the Persona game set, which is that every day counts, and every decision you make counts, and you have at your disposal this great cast of classmates and teachers and everything else. You could make much more use of the common room, and you could have each house have a very different storyline. Not just one quest, but like each house really matters, and you could really, really bake in the points for each house into this game and have, your point level affect the story as it unfolds. So if, you're part of House Gryffindor, but House Gryffindor has X amount of points and is behind Slytherin or whatever, the actual outcome of the game, the story trajectory changes. So that's what I would love, a game like that set in the universe of the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. That's like a dream game because it combines my fanboy love of the Persona games with my fanboy love of the Harry Potter books, and I would just. It sounds incredible. I mean, honestly, just somebody do this with a totally different new wizarding school, please. I would play that game. It doesn't have to be Harry Potter. Hell, you could dodge all this J.K. Rowling shit if you just made a new wizarding school up entirely and then gave it some Persona mechanics. It wouldn't have to even be as in depth as Persona. Like you could definitely scale back some of the complexities. And you know what else is great about Persona is the music. I love the music in those games. It's so damn good. I was actually I'm rewatching season 2 of The White Lotus, which is excellent, by the way. You should totally watch it. The soundtrack really reminds me of Persona. I'm going to have to sit down with both and listen to them. But season 2 soundtrack, some of the operatic stuff, really reminds me of moments in Persona. Anyways, excuse me, I'm a little stuffy today. I don't know if it's allergies or if I have a little cold or something, but I'm a little nasally. Forgive my nasaliness in this video. Yeah, so I don't know. This isn't really a review. This is just me thinking about stuff out loud. So, what do you think? Would you play a Persona style Hogwarts Legacy hybrid? Does that sound fun to you, or does it sound tedious? I don't know. Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. Peace.